and welcome to another installment of Rosewald. This is a Foundry VTT video incorporating a D&D campaign into Foundry itself. I am building this from the ground up. So far we've seen that I've built the town of Rosewald, which you're looking at now. Added some features to it. Today I'm going to show you a few changes I made from last week. And then I'm going to go to the first location, which will be a dungeon, where the players will start in my campaign. So if you saw last week's video, you'll see that I've added all these markers, so these are all now been filled out. So I've given them all items that they can be used, players can purchase. The other things I've changed is last week I said with the inns, I was going to put a item that was a night's rest and stuff from the inn itself, like food and that. I changed my mind on that. The reason I've changed my mind is because I realized when a player purchases that stuff, it just goes into inventory, so it's going to sit there unless they go in and then delete it, and that just seems pointless. So instead I've just got all this information on a OneNote file, which I would just tell them when they come to it, go, okay, you've gone to a cracked hourglass, this is how much a room is, this is how much food is, this is how much a drink is. And they just take it off themselves manually. It was a bit easier than doing it the other way. The other thing I've done is my NPCs. So I've got my guard, changed a token, signed some art for them. Got the guard there, got the Rose Warden, got her art, and I changed her details around, like I said before. She was using dexterity. So should be using the default sheet. There we go. And I also noticed prototype token. One thing to remember, if you do change things on your items, like on characters, if you take one from the SRD and just change stuff on the character sheet, you need to make sure you change also the prototype token details. Otherwise what will happen is when you drop them in, it will show you the original name, not the updated one. So probably the same with this guy. So if I look at Timond, so if I just drop him onto this map here, you'll see that it's showing as someone completely different because it's linking to something else. So I need his prototype token to be, I always want his name to be displayed for everyone. He is friendly. I'm hoping it's putting through the wrong token still. Why? Oh, because that's just the image there, it's not the token itself. Okay, I'll have to use a different way of changing tokens on that. But yeah, so it will pull through that information. So that's Rosewald. That's the changes I've done from last week. Nothing major. I've literally just gone in, added items that they can purchase. So for example, this is a blacksmith, given them access to buy most things. I haven't put plate mail. The reason I haven't put plate mail is I don't like giving it access to it. I know it's expensive and the cost is ridiculous, so it's like it's unlikely people will be able to afford it. But for me, plate mail should be one of those things that are specially made for the players. So the way I'm looking to do it is he can make it, but they would have to like custom order it and it'll be suited to them and stuff like that. So I just don't want it to be readily available. They can go to the shop or blacksmith, because historically things like plate mail most blacksmiths can't make. I believe it's meant to be called castle made or something along those lines, and it's meant to be extremely hard to make because it is like full metal armor, and it's meant to be quite difficult in that regards. It has to be suited to that person. So I don't like the idea of just going in and go, yes, here's 1500. I'll buy that suit of plate mail you've got on the rack there. I'd rather kind of just role play out a little bit. Nothing's really going to change. The cost will probably be the same, maybe a tiny bit more, but I want it to be a little bit more than just I buy it off the rack. That's just me. So what we're going to do today then, we are going to go and make a new location. So I'm going to make a new folder. This one is going to be called the 2, okay, and make a new scene. And just call it the Knights 2. I'll probably just call that the Knights team as well. Let me just change it. So this is going to be a first dungeon for them. I can take no credit for actually making this. I made the map, but the actual tomb itself I didn't do. If anyone, I imagine a lot of you have watched it, if anyone has seen 𝐼𝐻𝐾 stuff, then you will probably recognize this. This is my variation on the Delian tomb. So 𝐼𝐻𝐾 has a series called Running the Game for D&D on his channel, and what he does is during this series he came up with a tomb, a small location that starter players to go to, run through, and they get used to how certain things work. So this is what it is. So it's only a couple of rooms wide. So the way it works is you encounter bad guys outside, enemies of your choice, low-level enemies of whatever kind. They can either be at the entrance or they can be on patrol. The party gets to decide how they approach this. How do they approach these people? How do they get through this? What are they doing? Then they go into this first main room. Here they encounter a combat of some form. One wall has like a mural of 2 forces fighting. On the other side is some text, which becomes important later. This corridor here, there is a trap on this point here. And then this room is the main room where they fight basically a boss, which is just going to be like a slightly souped up version of whatever they fought before. And there is a statue. There is the puzzle in here. The puzzle then opens a secret room. Within there is like a low-level magic item. That's basically it. It covers a lot of bases. It's really good. So you have like skill checks, you have saving throws, you have combat, puzzle, and a reward. All of which is really awesome. So the way I'm doing this, so for my game, so my bad guys for low level are going to be gnolls. I've dropped their hit points to make them a little bit more easy to deal with, because I believe core gnolls have like 22 hit points, which is way too high for level 1 fighters. So I've dropped that. I've also, I learnt this from my recent in-person game where I ran this. Do not give them D8 weapons. That is a bad idea. So I did give one of them a longbow and quickly changed the next guy to a short bow, because that was, nearly one-shot one of the players. It's like, okay, so D6 weapons. So they're going to have like short swords and short bows. Maybe spears, which they only ever use one-handed. And then in the main room, which is the boss, is just going to be a gnoll with like the normal amount of hit points, like 22 I think it is. So he'll have that and a feature. I gave him one that allowed him to buff other gnolls in the room. And that's kind of it. So so I'm going to run through this. And then I'll show you this. So what I'm going to be doing here is going to be walling it, showing you how walls work, putting tokens on, editing any of the SRD tokens to make them work how I want to, and then also creating an item itself. So the first thing we're going to do is walls. So to do walls, you go to this icon here, and you get this option menu. So you have different walls. So this is the normal wall. These will just be the stock standard ones you'll use for most things. So these walls block line of sight, block movement, all the usual stuff. You got terrain walls. Those can be used to block line of sight in certain ways, but not block movement. Things like that. You then have invisible walls, so windows. They can block movement, but you can see through them. Ethereal walls. Those block line of sight, but can be moved through. Then you got doors. You got a normal door and secret door. Obviously secret doors are hidden until the DM basically opens it. So the first thing I always do is I do a bounding box. There are modules that can do this for you. Not that does anytime soon, but what I do is I want to make sure that players can't go wandering off the map or get lost and stuff. This gives me area around the map to use as I so need. Well, actually, before I do that, I need to make sure my grid is the right size. So I know from experience from playing this the other day, my grid should be 90. So let me change those. Yeah. So what I've done here is, maybe it's different. So for your grid, what I would advise is if you are doing anything with pre-made maps, try and find out like the grid size and the size of the map, because it tells you how big your grids are and what you can do with them. So mine is designed to be like this, so yeah. Because what you'll probably need to do is a lot of stuff is you'll need to sort the grids out slightly, and that is a case of just aligning things up. Now, a lot of times it does not work perfectly. I would advise heavily, if you can get a map that does not have a grid on it pre-made, do that, because trying to match a Foundry grid to a pre-made grid is a ball ache, honestly, because you will get one section perfect, the next section doesn't line up in the slightest, and there's no fucking reason why. It just doesn't, and I hate it. It's so difficult to do. So you get to a point where you have like the squares and they're slightly overlapping, and it's like, well, which square meant to be in? So try and get ones without that if you can. So as you can see here, my grid is matching up perfectly how I want it. So the rooms that are here. So this is really useful because I've made this in Dungeon Draft. Dungeon Draft allows me to set those parameters, so I know that these squares should be aligned perfectly. It's just knowing which ones. So obviously, what you need to do is you go into the grid configuration tool, which on your scene configurations, and you choose your grid size type. You can change the image, so if you need the image just to zoom in or out, you can do that. And you just change your grid size as you need and align the grid. You can do that with the arrow tools, making them match where you need to. So I'm going to save changes on this. Yeah, that's absolutely fine. So I'll now refresh and put the grid where I want it to. Grid scale, yep, 5. I'm going to make my grid a little bit. See if white will be, yeah, white's a tiny bit clearer. Let's make it a bit more opaque there. Make it a bit clearer for players when they go through it, and then I'll save that. So here's my grid. You can clearly see the details here. So what I can do now, you can see because I've changed the size of the map and the grid, the walls have changed. So always do that first. Always make sure your grid aligns before you start adding walls on. Otherwise, you will have spent ages walling something, only to have to then wall it all over again because the grid's changed and they've all moved place. First way of advice there, just so you know. So one thing to know with walls, they can affect performance on Foundry. So the more walls you have, the more intensive the map will be on machines and loading times. So it's generally considered, if you don't need a wall, don't add them. So if you have like corners, do you need to go around all the corners exactly, or can you just go around these little things? So you can see on this, I'm going to have to wall quite a bit because I don't want the players to see the inside of this and this. So I have to wall the outside and then wall the inside. So this one could be quite labor intensive, so I am not sticking to my rule I told you. So to do a wall, all you do is you drag and click, and then if you hold control, you can just chain walls like this. As I said, I'm not doing this really well. Don't need to be perfect. Ideally, you want to kind of get like in the middle of your walls. You want it in the middle. The reason being, you want to be able to show the players that there is some outside to it. Now, like I said, I'm not doing. I potentially could do this without doing it this way and just kind of go around the black bit, giving them a nice thick wall to see. As I said, you could get away with just doing quite straightforward walls and just tell players like there's a blackness behind there, ignore it. Some people hate doing walls. I actually find it quite therapeutic. It's quite nice to get them when they all line up perfectly. As I said, this is probably a bad show. You may just end up with lots of walls. Thankfully, because I run on the Forge is generally pretty good at managing this, so load times should be kind of okay. It's not a massive map. Obviously, the bigger the map, the more walls you have, the longer the load time players will have, especially if they have slow computers. That's when things get a little bit dicey for them. So it kind of keeps cutting us out. So the theme of this place is, and part of my campaign is an old knightly order. So while I'm doing this, I'll run through the premise of my campaign and the way I'm running this. So the premise of this campaign is that long time ago, we're talking like maybe like 600-700 years ago, there was a invasion from the abyss. There was Dune, in a moment of clarity, gifted to some demon princes or worshippers of his a series of items, each of which was empowered and imbued with some of his pure chaotic demonic essence. These were then really powerful artifacts that these demons then invaded the world and had a time of trying to destroy it. From there, these armies swept across the surfaces, trying to wipe out all life in Tharizdun's name. What they didn't know was these artifacts wanted to join together. Why Tharizdun didn't do this and just give them to one champion, who knows? He is a chaotic god of madness. He probably had a plan or just slipped back into those moments of madness. So these artifacts are trying to join together. If they all get accepted and bound onto one person under Tharizdun's name, then it actually releases or warps them into an avatar of him, and an avatar of Tharizdun comes to the material plane, which is what he wants. That would be bad for everyone, so no one wants this to happen. So what happened is, all these years ago, these armies were campaigning across the world trying to fight them, and near the place of Rosewald, a army engaged against a group of basically adventurers. These adventurers saw this as being their homeland. They decided they needed to defend it and protect it, and they stood up to a small army of demons alongside like a actual military force. In doing so, this battle was joined. It was not going the good way for humanity or non-demons as it is, and things were going really poorly. What happened was a very Joan of Arc event. A young woman joined the battlefield from a nearby farm. In doing so, she gave up her life. She swore to the Wild Mother and to the Dawn Father that she would do anything if it meant ridding this plague. And sensing some kind of acceptance, she snatched up a spear from the battlefield, and through blessing or luck, she became face to face with this demon, who held, at this point, he was wielding a crown, a dark iron crown of some form. In doing so, she struck him with the spear, which obviously this creature laughed off, sensing the futility, and was about to just drop her where she stood when suddenly from his chest he felt a piercing sensation. Looking down, a black rose began to pierce its way through his skin. Following quickly, he began to petrify, his limbs becoming bark-like substances, and within a matter of moments he had become a tree. All around him, the demons suffered the same fate. All of them began to transform and transmutate into trees. All around them, these trees, rose bushes began to bloom, having black roses. These roses are quite powerful in a way. They're imbued with with basically demon blood. But as the adventurers looked on at these people, what happened? They also saw their savior, this young girl, had also suffered the same fate. Her bargain with the Wild Mother and the Dawn Father was to give her life in aid of the others. And in doing so, she suffered the same fate and became a guardian. So as she became a guardian, she protected the land, and the forest known as the Rosewood bloomed into growth. This is a long time ago. Very few people actually remember any of this, but the adventurers that remained and saw this decided to band together and become a knightly order to protect this location, sensing that at some point in the future someone will try to take that crown or release the army. So they set up a knightly order in the mountainside nearby, overlooking and becoming quite secretive. They sought to deal with demons, fighting them, learning their ways of combating them, all this stuff, and they became very proficient demon hunters. Unfortunately, something happened to them, which is going to be part of the storyline here. But one of the main things they've done is that this knightly order didn't want people to know about the forest, the true nature of it, so they went on a purge, and they literally spent their time systematically removing all knowledge they could find in the world about the wood, about this location, about the demons that they fought. The crown, the knightly order itself is basically expunged. No one knows about it unless you were alive during that time. So like elves and dwarves, likely to have some knowledge of them, which is going to be part of the storyline here. This knightly order appears from somewhere, and party's like, who the fuck are these? We've never come across them before, we've never heard them before. How do we do this? And so that's going to be my storyline. It's a little not great, but I like it. I think it's quite an interesting one. So I'm going to be using that as my storyline here. So this is a tomb of one of these knights, which starts off the question of who is this knightly order, where they come from, what's going on. So first things I want to do, so what I'm going to do now is I'm switching to add indoors. So you can see I've walled all this. I'm going to test this shortly with a token to see what their vision looks like, to make sure they can see everything they need to see. But I'm going to add a couple of doors here, which is the first thing I'm going to do. So I think this is quite a controversial topic for some people. Columns. Now, some DMs just see a column as its terrain. If you draw a line of sight through it, you can't attack it. You don't need to draw anything extra on it. Some people like to draw the columns itself and draw the things on. I'm in that group. I like to actually have the walls for the columns put in, because it just allows me, I don't have to worry about too much about like line of sight. It's already like tacked in. So one thing to bear in mind, to complete the loop, you need to make sure that your last node and starting node overlap. If you do not, the vision will get through. So don't need that. So what I'm going to do is switch this to marker, which allows me to highlight the walls, copy, and I want to undo a terrain wall for this guy. This will allow them to basically see, kind of like see the wall behind him, but not move through it. because I don't want them to be just like wandering through the statue. A lot of people don't like to do that. I do. So first things first, I've got a normal door up here, blocking this corridor off. So to attach a door, you need to have two nodes, which you can draw a point through. So I go to here. No, that's not going to be straight. That one will be straight. So if I bring this one down a little bit more. Which means I can probably get rid of that and just connect these two up here. Make that nice and straight. I can do the same here actually. So if I bring this one across, bring this one up to connect them, and I can draw a door. So if I click on there, yeah. So to connect things, if you click on the one you want and then hold Control, you can continuously draw things and you can line things up on there. So if I click on there, hold Control, I can drag that across from that point. Otherwise, you kind of draw and then you have to move and connect. So that's that. And then I have, there's that one. So what I've got now down here is a secret door. I'm going to do similar here. So I want to bring that down to the corner there, and I want to continue. That's that. I deleted a piece of wall I needed to keep, so tie those up there and switch to secret door. So select this one, hold Control, drag it down, and click, and it connects. Now, and these I'm going to make terrain walls. So these are meant to be like sarcophagus. These are basically stone doors that are just blocking them off, but I don't want them to be like doors you just open. They're just going to be basically a wall, and it's going to be like an inscription on it, and just I'm just going to leave them open and just have this as like a sarcophagus is here. And then we've got the sarcophagus here. I'm not going to wall this, I don't need to. I'll just tell me it's a sarcophagus, you can't like go stand on it. So when you're done with your walling, you just go click off it and you'll see now, and I've added a door there. So you can see here on Foundry, these are doors. This symbol shows it's closed, that shows it's open. And this is a secret door, and again they won't see this. So the way I test this, I would normally use a PC, but I don't have one though, so I'm just going to drop a guard in. What I'm going to do is edit them, give them vision of, see that's vision, 5 foot, play token, and what I can see now, the reason I do this is it shows me if there's any issue. So when you give a token vision, it gives you what you can see. It shows you exactly what that token can see. So I can now go through my map here and just make sure that there's no lines. Because what will happen is if I've not walled something correctly, it will show that there is like line of sight they can see through. Obviously I don't want to happen. Let's go around the outside first. Just make sure that's all lined. So far so good. Doesn't appear to be any gaps. Okay, so the outside's all sorted. Now let's go for the inside. So what you'll notice is if I try and go, you can use like the arrow keys to move tokens around. So if I go left or right, it doesn't work. Back and forth does. So I can go to there. What's in this room? Door shut. Open it. Down the stairwell. Into this room. See the columns. Can't go through the statue, but can see through it. So you can see all the way around. Let's go around that way. Perfect. Now, you'll see this because I can, but you can see that he can't move through it because there's a wall there. I'm going to open that. It's a corridor. And you can now go walking into the room and see what's going on. investigate these tombs. So what you'll notice is token vision is basically bound, so he can see what he sees, and then it will show you that, and it remembers like fog of war. So you can see that this has revealed all the way around here because he's seen all this around. I can reset it, so if you go to the lighting option, there's this little reset fog of war. If I click this, it'll reload the map, and I'll click on him, he sees nothing. Perfect. So war's all done. That's nice and straightforward. So what we're going to do now is we're going to add some lighting in. So for this we go to the light bulb, and you got these options. So you got transition to darkness, transition to daylight, and light. So I want light. Now I don't want a massive one. This is going to be a campfire. So campfire is going to be quite big, but this I'm going to shrink down on the basis of it is underneath. So I'm going to make it like this big. So it'll fill the space of the room, but not like go all the way down. So the way lighting works is you click, you drag out the aura as you wish to, and what it'll do, you can see it respects light. So try and make it that big. So this will be a light source. So if you double right click on it, or double click on it, you can see you can change the coordinates, you can change the radius. If you want it to have exact one, so let's go dim light. So bright light is 10-foot bright light. Let's go 20 foot there. So you can see now what it's done. From this point here, it's made 20 foot. So it's giving this aura down here, so that when players come down, they'll see a light flickering there, so they know something's there. There are sconces which I haven't lit, and I'm not probably going to, but what I can do, I can change the light color. Let's go for like an orangey color. Sounds good. That's nice and bright. It's a bit too bright. Turn the intensity down a bit. I can animate the light, so I'm going to want this. Let's flicker it like a torch. Slow that down now, so I don't want to go too quick. And update light source. Perfect. So if we take this guard again, pop in here, and then because I didn't do it on the token, I did it on that individual one. So if we go, he's got 5-foot dim light, so he's a human, has vision. Suddenly he's like, oh, something's going on down here. The moment he walks there, because there's a light effect, he can see into this room. You can see there is a slight flickering glow to it. Glows that you can't see in there. So it's like this, like very low. I don't tend to have the animations flicker too much because I can get distracted. I might actually increase it slightly though. So now I've got like a flickering light there. I'm gonna put sconces here, so draw a light source out. So what you can do, you can set the radius. So most things in D&D have set radius. So this will be a torch. I think it's like 2040. So I'm going to do that. Position it there. Snap into grid. And there we go. So if you want something to not snap to grid, you can hold shift and move it, and it will move it where you want it to. So I'm going to do the same thing. Make it kind of an orangey glow. Reduce the intensity down so it's not too bright. Give it the torch animation. What I can do is just copy this, move it to these sconces. So if I now go here, you see there now is a flickering lights. So if I take my guard again, pop him in the middle of the room. So again, just need to not delete him really, don't I? So if we go 5 and vision, you see now he's got this torch lit room. He comes down this dark corridor and sees this room with like slightly flickering lights. Walks in, you can see what's going on. You can see this line of sight is blocked by the columns, so you can't see all around. You won't be able to see the door. So yeah, perfect. There's my lighting. So I'm going to leave this one here. I will come back to this next week. We're going to populate the dungeon. I didn't get quite as far as I wanted, This takes a while. So I'm going to populate a dungeon with creatures. This case it would be gnolls. Like I said, I will take a boss gnoll, I will edit him, give him a little bit more of a boost to make him a bit more boss, more interesting. And I'll also create an item that will be clickable and like acceptable from here, which they can take. So yeah, that's it. So I hope this shows you like the basis of doing this, and also the importance of making sure you check your walls to make sure it all works. Otherwise, if I hadn't done that, what would happen is if this wall, for example, wasn't lined up, you would see the light streaming through this gap and they had to see through, kind of ruins the illusion. And there's more stuff you can do. So you can do like ambient noise and soundtrack and stuff like that, which I will probably do in the next episode as well. So yeah, so thanks a lot for watching. I hope this is interesting, and we'll complete this one next week. And you'll see the end and completed version of the first adventure, I guess it will be. Or tomb, and I'll also have like the notes set up for I'll have those all set out so I can put them in rooms and stuff like that. But thanks a lot for watching. I hope you enjoyed this. Please like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff, and I will see you in the next episode of Rosewald.